everyone, and thank you for joining us for the last panel here at Atlanta Startup Week from Comcast SportsTech. I'm super excited about this one. We are going to discuss how the sports technology ecosystem is constantly changing between emerging trends, players, and companies. So joining me today, I have, first of all, Jose Vietes. Jose is actually a co-founder of Boomtown Accelerators, and he's the director and portfolio manager. He's the hi, Jose. So Jose's experience from both sides makes him the perfect guest. He's founded 5 startups. He's worked as a designer at Google, and he's joining us here. Jose, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
Awesome. And we also have Jeffrey Donenfeld, who's the investment manager. Hello, Jeffrey.
Hi, how are you? Good to see you.
Good. I'm glad you could join us. So Jeffrey's a strategic and innovative investment director with a background in international business and an extensive background in advanced technologies. He's worked on a number of deep field science experiments with the U.S. government in Antarctica and loves geeking over science and tech. So I'm sure we're going to hear some awesome yet nerdy things from Jeffrey that I look forward to. And then lastly, we have Ryan Bell, who works closely with me. We are both part of the Comcast SportsTech marketing team. So Ryan, thanks for being here as well.
Happy to be here. Let's do this.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we should just jump into it. This is a question more so directed at Comcast SportsTech. Do you guys want to talk about the investment areas that we look in, since those highlight a lot of the main trends in sports tech? Jeffrey, why don't you?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So we have 8 different investment areas that we cover with the Comcast SportsTech accelerator, and those investment areas cover a wide range of areas that all funnel into sports technology, sports industry, and a whole lot of different topics that our partners and our constituents are all interested in, and that we're uniquely suited to work with startups on. Those include fan and player engagement, athlete and player and performance, media and entertainment, venue and event innovation, team and coach success, business of sports, fantasy sports and betting, and esports. And one thing you'll notice there is that it's not just, say, sports gear. It's not just training. It's not just sports broadcasting. It's the whole range of all of those things and everything kind of surrounding the sports industry.
Awesome. Yeah. And so we'll start with Jose. Sorry, I was muted. Jose, we'll start with you. Do you have a favorite investment area that we focus on?
Interesting. That's a good question. I think one of the spaces I find really interesting is actually the one that's a little bit on the edge of sports tech, which is business of sports, right? So, I've been doing startups since I was, or businesses of some sort since I was like 6 or 7 years old. So I just love ways of making money, and so I love the idea of just helping, of just creating businesses that either monetize previously unmonetized parts of the sports ecosystem, helping athletes, start their own businesses or do find creative ways of creating value. For example, for business of sports, it could be everything from optimizing the back end systems for their financials or something, or being able to figure out what to do with the money that they make. So that it's a pretty broad category, but I love that it's business and you're making money, and that's fun for me.
I think making money is fun for everyone, Jose. So Ryan, I'll throw that to you. Do you have a favorite investment area that we focus on, and why is it so interesting to you?
I'm on the Television Academy on the Interactive Media Peer Group, which is called like New Media now. So I find like the media side of it, and then the fan and player engagement, and then the fan and like the performance stuff. So like I didn't have this prepared for this panel, but I've got my Oculus Quest 2 right here because the entire family's been playing Supernatural, which is this training game that's just amazing. Right. So as we see these new ways for athletes to train, and Natalie, you and I were just on a call with a BMX Olympian, Elise Willoughby, last night, and she's like making things out of duct tape to like track her cadence for BMX training and stuff like that. So as we see these really cool ways to train that are in VR or AR, and they connect an audience with an athlete, it's the way that all these investment areas can potentially combine and talk to each other. That's what excites me the most as a like profoundly nerdy human being.
I'm surrounded by them on this call, aren't I, guys?
Great, that's awesome.
So Jeffrey, let's hear what investment area really catches your attention.
Oh man, I mean, it's so much fun to talk to companies in all of these areas. The two that have been on top of my mind lately have been, I'd say, venue and event innovation and athlete and player performance. In terms of venue and event, there's so much new technology that's allowing teams and venues to connect with fans, super low latency streaming technologies, hyper localization technologies, camera technologies for delivering media to viewers at home and fans in the stand. I love talking to people about that and understanding how all of the technology in our world today is being able to be consolidated into a stadium for an incredible experience. On the other side, and I'm going to cover two here, athlete and player performance has really taken a big step forward with technologies like Ryan was just showing with VR technologies. We're looking at enhanced safety technologies to keep players on the field and maybe on the road extra super safe. And we're also looking at technologies that can model muscle fatigue down to the cellular level and tell players when to start and stop working out. It's all really amazing, and I think it's turned all of us on the team into more intense at-home workouts as we've been testing out all this new technology and riding our bike trainers all day.
Yeah. Definitely. So I know for me, mine's definitely our fan engagement category, because I think especially with the consumption of 2020 being so different, I've never seen it in its prime. Being an avid sports fan, I definitely try to watch everything from, the horse races to the NASCAR and NFL and everything. So I think what we've done this year in sports tech and keeping fans engaged has been really, really awesome. So on that same note, guys, let's talk about how consumption's changed in 2020. So Jose, what kinds of things have you seen that's really changed the investment areas in 2020 with everything going on, and then just how sports are being consumed in general?
Yeah. I mean, we all know that, 2020 is crazy. So I think what we saw were in the beginning of our application cycle, we saw a lot of companies in the venue and innovation space. And those companies often had to do some internal kind of come to Jesus type moments of like, okay, are we going to make it through this year when there are no venues to innovate into? And a lot of them ended up kind of shutting down their doors. But a good number of them ended up trying to come up with just different ways to address problems they were solving already, but in today's new reality, or at least a temporary reality. So we saw a lot of that happening, especially in the venue innovation space. For example, if you had some mobile payment companies about in order to streamline processes of buying concessions or whatever in venues, they usually some of them, one concept was, okay, how can we do the same thing but for something like Hopin, right? Like to be able to increase monetization of digital events. So there's a lot of change in that one, which was necessary for survival.
Yeah, I mean, as we look at what happened with NASCAR and the esports part of NASCAR, that really became something that brought on an entirely new audience, and they're going to continue that audience by having like esports events at physical events, which it's just an amazing thing to see such a big win and such a big shift in demographic. So that's gotten me more interested in esports because I understand that conversation. Like so Jeffrey, with you, how do you see these digital audiences changing in that way? What are the cool examples for you? Because I know you're more into the cycling aspect.
Yeah, I mean, well, so first of all, in terms of venue and event innovation, I was going to ask, what is a venue anyway? Now, when you're watching an NBA game in the bubble, right? And you can see that, the stands are filled with fans, but they're all just little video images of people sitting at home on their couch, right? Like, are those people actually in the venue? Is that it's a whole changing thing. And so similarly, like you mentioned, Ryan, with the bike training, I'm going to work out with my friends in Zwift now, and we're climbing mountains in France together with big audiences and able to spectate each other in Zwift as well. And so I think that's doing the volcano laps in Watopia is the new cycling venue for us, rather than the bike lane out on the road.
What I saw,
still get to drink coffee beforehand, so it's great.
I saw something like that I thought was like this amazing, only can happen in 2020 thing. There was on Amazon, there was a Prime bike that was listed, and after that Prime bike listed, Peloton stock went down, but it just happened that it was just the name of the bike. It wasn't like an Amazon Prime. It wasn't an Amazon product, right. So it rebounded, and I was like, man, this is crazy. And I just thought that was just such an amazing and funny damn thing that happened. I don't know.
You never really know what's going to happen, right?
Hey, it's Friday the 13th today, guys. We just got to be thankful that the tech's working enough for us to talk today.
Yeah, you never really know with the Zwift and the bike training. We've really, it's taken a while, but we've come almost back to the same group that I used to ride outside with all the time. And now actually the list of people that I ride with frequently has expanded to across the globe. I'm riding with people all over the world now, and friends that I never thought I'd be able to actually ride with. And we're sitting there, in a virtual world, but on a FaceTime group call as well for an hour and a half. It's a little ridiculous.
That's pretty cool.
Things are changing. So let's take a slight shift and let's talk trends in the sports tech space. So Jose, what are some of the hottest trends in sports tech that you see right now?
Yeah, I think with kind of the uncorking of all the pent-up demand that the lack of sports for a season led to, you're seeing some spikes in just fan engagement for all sorts of sports. And what we're seeing is a lot of the companies around the sports betting side of things are really taking off. There's just so many ways to, you can bet on anything. And there's so many ways to bet and interfaces for betting, whether it's on the sports or on the performance of a player, on the performance of someone on the bench, all sorts of stuff. And so we're seeing a lot of that, and it's a combination of the big players getting bigger and a lot of small players trying to get market share and make a splash and really the name of the game is kind of distribution right now, where the demand's there. It's just how do you get in front of people. So that's especially, it got legalized, the sports betting and everything, a couple years ago, and now it's it's really coming to maturity, and I think it's going to change the way that we interact with things, just like fantasy sports changed the way people watch football, NBA, etc. I think it's just going to be part of a day-to-day thing where you're watching a play and you're pressing a button and betting $5 on to what's going to happen next. So it's becoming a lot more mainstream. If when before it was maybe like the really intense fans who were doing that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Raul asked, what are you seeing in golf? And before someone dives into that, I know just so everyone's aware that Comcast SportsTech is actually partners with the Golf Channel. So that's something we're following closely. Obviously, the Masters are kicking off. So golf's super exciting right now. So guys, what trends are we seeing in golf?
Yeah, on the golf side too, we saw a lot of companies recently that are building just software to increase the experience for golfers. A lot of booking apps to be able to pick your greens. A lot of apps to be able to compete virtually with each other, even if you're you're playing for real, but you're competing score wise with others. Again, betting, being able to do micro bets throughout a golf course. Stuff around just performance, whether it's analysis like movement and limb tracking, stuff around being in the zone, trying to have like mental sharpness type tools. Those are some of the ones that I've been seeing recently that have been popping out.
One thing that I've been seeing as well, and we've talked about as a team as well, is wireless technologies enabling high bandwidth streaming and media delivery over huge production spaces like a massive golf course, or like a whole bike course, or a giant NASCAR track, and 5G networks, super low latency to no latency networks, allowing broadcasters to capture compelling video from all over, and then give fans who are sitting on their couches having a second screen experience as well, flip to any camera they want. So go to the 180 camera in the 12th hole and see how that's going on the course.
Absolutely. And Jeffrey, do you want to comment on a popular sports tech trend that you see occurring right now?
I was going to say that I kind of used that as my opportunity to talk about it. I have been a big fan lately of the concept of low latency networks and interestingly deterministic latency networks, and how that can affect streaming sports, second screen experiences, as well as betting. If you have deterministic latency, frame perfect accuracy of streaming sports to everybody in their living rooms, what that can do for betting, and then to go down that road a little bit in terms of sports betting, all sorts of options with blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies, and the concept of smart contract mediated micro bets for peer-to-peer betting, I think is interesting technology.
Absolutely. And Ryan?
Since I'm always looking at anything that's marketing or social or apps, and the esports explosion has been something that as like a natural like storyteller type of guy, I'm always putting those puzzle pieces together, and how the NBA used NBA 2K before everything started. I think that watching these communities build technologies and build communities based off of technologies is my favorite crazy thing that's happened in 2020 that I wouldn't have expected to care so much about. I mean, like, I've got Google alerts on esports stuff now, and that's ridiculous. So I think that's that's one of the investment areas and one of the conversations that I didn't think that I would be that like emotionally invested in. I think that's mine.
Yeah, I know, talking esports and everything, it's crazy to me. You know, Jeffrey, you made the comment previously of what is a venue now. You know, esports
Right.
is everyone, we pictured it, you know, a few years ago, just everyone at their houses and whatever, you know, tech they could get their hands on, and that was taking people to the next level. And now, you know, they're building these large venues. Atlanta has esports teams. You know, so that drastic shift just in the last, even just year that we've seen is phenomenal. And then it's exciting, you know, obviously for the space we're in. So, so guys, Umama's joining us, which is awesome. She was actually previously on a few of our panels this week. She is with Sweatpack, and awesome woman, but she wants to know about the crossover between sports and healthcare tech. So Jeffrey, would you like to take that one?
Yeah, there's a lot of crossover. And one of the questions that I find myself asking a lot and batting around with founders who were talking about is this question of, you know, listening to the idea and saying, is that a medical device? And what does that mean? And that kind of divide between healthcare and sports tech, and the, you know, obviously the areas that we're seeing that is in, you know, mental focus and clarity and the ability to, you know, read brain waves, optimize your mental state and everything. And then the other area that we're seeing a lot of crossover is in injury detection and prevention. Is a really important area to work in, and there's a ton of crossover there. And ultimately, I think we're looking at how to prevent injury, you know, and detect it before it actually becomes a problem. There's some new sensors out there that we're looking at that can really give you, you know, a lot of good data before you're in the healthcare environment, and to keep you out of it.
Yeah, and I know to contribute to that, and I don't want to give too much away about our webinar next week with Elise on Wednesday, but Ryan had mentioned that we spoke to her, and she's an Olympic athlete. And I think she talked about so much crossover there being with, you know, you can be so talented as an athlete, but if you don't have things that are setting you up for success in the technology space to do all this tracking and the behind the scenes of keeping your health at a prime level, you know, you'll never perform as someone that does have those opportunities, right. You know, from eating and training and mental health and everything in the healthcare space. I think, you know, we don't realize sometimes how big that overlap actually is. And that's, you know, to prevent injuries, to, you know, set yourself up for success. So I definitely always think that's interesting when it's brought up and on the forefront.
Yep. Yeah. One of the other things we're seeing, I think a good amount is taking health tech companies that didn't operate in sports tech and bringing them into the sports tech world. So it's not as, you know, mind blowing or you know, ground shifting or whatever, but they weren't being used commonly in the sports tech world. You know, everything from perhaps air quality measurement devices, right, that were used by consumers that were interested in it for their family and their health because of asthma, and now being used for making sure that athletes are going out, are not damaging their lungs by doing their physical training, or especially a big part has been mental health, which is becoming more of a forefront discussion topic, and the importance of it both for the overall wellness of athletes who are under stress, but also because their mental health has particular impact on their physical performance, in addition to just their general well-being, and making sure that they have access to those tools that before they maybe weren't using them. And you're seeing a lot of platforms either expanding their existing offerings into sports tech or building standalone devices and products specifically for the sports and athlete world.
Yeah, I love that. And I also love that, you know, what you said, that mental health is becoming the forefront of a lot of discussions. I know here at Comcast SportsTech and, you know, all of our other accelerator brands, that's something we focus on with our founders as well. You know, the startup world isn't easy. The tech world isn't easy. You know, there's always stressors and stuff. So I always think that's an important conversation to keep on the forefront for sure.
And as we, as we look at the way that athletes have always been trendsetters, selling us shoes, soft drinks, whatever, it's what they do first. And, in our recent newsletter, we had that blurb about Tom Brady's diet program running 16K per year, LeBron James spending $1.5 million a year to keep his body in excellent shape, Russell Wilson doing $1 million per year. Like, look at that, and then start to look at your own expenditures, how much you're spending per year and what you're spending it on. It's something that I'm more aware of, and I think that's a really cool way to look at it, and look at what these athletes turned investors are investing in. That's been a big conversation that we've been having, from Andre Iguodala to a million other folks that are doing it. And here at Atlanta Startup Week, we've got Brandon Chubb, who is doing Captain Partners. And he was on a panel earlier talking about how he invests as an NFL player that's become, an investor. Very cool stuff.
Yeah, and I think along those same lines, Ryan, when we're talking about the shift from, investors turn startup founders and vice versa and everything between, I think, 2020 has brought a lot of crossover as well in sports. So we have, Bubba Wallace from NASCAR now driving for a team that's led by Michael Jordan. And I think, I think it's, reading that and me being the NASCAR fan I am, I was mind blown that, we're now seeing this unity and this crossover between athletes. And I think everyone's starting to shift in 2020 and have these new roles. And like you said, and people that are investing in these startups are now becoming startup founders themselves. And I think it's been interesting to see, and it's bringing some new players in the game. And I think that's what we need. A constant shakeup, I think, is what's going to keep the ecosystem definitely running, right?
Right.
Totally.
So with that being said, what we're talking about with emerging trends and every shift, that's bringing emerging companies. So I think, with the spirit of it being Atlanta Startup Week, we hope that a lot of startups are tuning in. So, the three of you are a large spearhead for our company in what we look for in a startup founder. And I think, that'll always be a topic that should be touched on, so people set themselves up for success when applying to our accelerator. So do you guys want to kind of touch on what we look for in companies and in these startups?
Yeah, I'd be glad to jump on that one. What I tell founders is, rather than it being a formula of what we look for each team to make the argument to us, to make the case that they have the team on board to execute on the vision that they're setting forth. And that's kind of all a catch-all statement there. Where, if you're a hardware company, then, I'd expect to see someone with hardware engineering experience, electrical engineering, computer science, product design, et cetera. If it's, a health tech company, then somebody who has experience navigating that ecosystem. And if it's, selling into providers or whatever else into the health system, then having some knowledge of how that world works. If it's in the sports tech world, it's et cetera, right? It kind of goes that way. But usually the minimum we look for any team that we invest in are at least 2 to 3 people working on that company. And having a really big focus on a problem they're trying to solve. We look a lot less at teams that have built something cool and are just looking for someone to use it and buy it. Because that's very risky and that can be short-lived. Instead, we look for founders that are in love with a problem, obsessed with solving a problem, because we know that their solution as a result will change based on how that need changes. So if the market changes, for example, somebody doing video innovation a year ago, if they built a really cool little feature that makes you attending venues better, and that was the extent of their focus, 6 months later, I bet they're not around. But if they were in love with the fan experience as it related to esports watching, right, or as it related to specifically NBA games or something, then they probably are still around because the problem changed, and now they can come up with a different solution for that. So we look for founders that are in love with the problem, and are obsessed with knowing their customers well, and helping them solve that problem.
One of the other things that I really love looking for in founders and meeting people who are intellectually honest and really looking to work with us on asking the hard questions, addressing the issues they have, and moving forward in the best way. As a Comcast SportsTech accelerator program, we're really looking for teams and companies that have something great, know they're on to something amazing, and have an amazing team, but don't have every bit of it figured out yet, and are looking forward to and open to tearing down everything they have, building it back up, questioning every assumption, and moving forward in the right way. And we really love working with people on that. And bringing in our awesome group of partners that has epically vast resources to do all sorts of great things, to be able to ask those questions and get proofs of concept and test it all out. Where it doesn't work as well in terms of an accelerator program is a founder that comes in and says, hey, we have it all figured out, everything's ready to ship, we just need a little cash infusion to move the ball. That's a great case for some types of investing, but for an accelerator program, we really look for that open mindset.
Yeah, and Jeffrey, I appreciate that, because my follow-up question was going to be, when you do get into one of these accelerators, what does it take to be successful?
Yeah.
And I think you both touched on that as well. That drive that you have, that tenacity as a founder, but also being able to accept when people are giving you this help and this advice, and not always having the right answers, right? Being able to look at what you love and what you're consuming yourself with,
Mm-hmm.
but take a step back and realizing, okay, I came here for a reason. I do need this help. So what are they telling me?
Yeah, and it's actually been an interesting switch that we've seen, or I've seen in the last 2 weeks, in terms of the sports tech accelerator, as we have transitioned from the initial vetting of applicants to our program, and are now onboarding the teams into the program and everything, is to get to transition them from this pitching phase, where they are representing that they have a lot of it figured out and really kind of pitching, to saying, okay, we're on your team now. We're excited to work with you. What don't you know? What are the problems? And really get into that and embrace those issues.
Yeah, I love that. We do all become one, what you said, team, family. So
definitely.
I think that's how everyone learns to thrive, right?
It's the best to get the founders now on Zoom, but to get them in the room and say, hey, we're not on opposite sides of the table now. We're on the same side of the table. Let's work together. This is going to be awesome.
I love that. So on that same note, and then we'll start to wrap this up. Maybe someone's listening and they think they have the next best sports tech idea and everything like that, but might be worried about doing a startup. That's a scary journey to take. I think it takes that special type of person to make that jump, because you don't know what the fate holds for that company. So what words of advice would you give to someone thinking about getting in the sports tech space, but really just a startup space?
First of all, the first thing I'd say is as a founder who's thinking about your first company or your second or 10th, that is awesome that you're doing it. It's the biggest honor of my position is the honor of being able to talk to entrepreneurs and founders who are putting themselves out there and going forward on their idea and are bold enough to do that. I think that's such a great thing. And then secondly, I'd say go for it and do it. Get in touch with us. Talk to us about your idea, whether it's an idea that you thought up as you were on your bike trainer the other day and are like, this needs to be fixed, or whether it's an idea that you've tried and it's not really taken off, but you're working on it. Whatever stage you're at, talk to us, and we're excited for ideas.
Yeah. I'd say for depending on what stage you are, really think about the team that you're putting together. That's the biggest constant in your business. As I've mentioned a few times, your business is going to change. The problem is going to change. Your customer might change, but your team is going to be the biggest constant. And we've seen amazing founding companies with mediocre ideas do amazing things. Most of the time they do. We've seen amazing ideas with mediocre teams tank their companies, and that happens most of the time. So really think about who you bring on board. Really think about who your co-founders are. Have tough conversations about working together, and everything from equity to where your strengths and weaknesses are, and make sure that there's trust and respect, and that you complement each other's skill sets. Identify what the weaknesses are, and don't be afraid to give away parts of your business, like pieces of equity, in order to bring on the skill sets you need to make this thing successful. Because it's better to have 50% of something great than 100% of nothing.
Yeah, and I think watching all the startups come through for us, everyone has their strengths and everyone has their weaknesses, like you said. Someone that might thrive in one aspect might struggle in another. So, having that team and being able to bounce ideas off each other and really play to each other's strengths, I think, is where we've always seen our startups thrive. So I think that's absolute great advice. So guys, I really think that's, we've covered a lot about sports tech, trends, us. It's exciting stuff. For anyone tuning in that wants to keep talking, Jeffrey's dropped his email in the chat, so don't hesitate to reach out. Feel free. It's Jeffrey at ComcastSportsTech.com. We have a few exciting events coming up next week. We have a webinar on Wednesday that we touched on briefly with Elise Willoughby. So if you guys want to tune in, it's at 3 p.m. Eastern time, and we look forward to seeing you there. Gentlemen, I really appreciate you joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I always appreciate your love for sports tech. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Annalie. Thank you all.
Thanks everyone for watching. You guys have a great rest of your Friday.
Talk to y'all soon.